The laboratory hung in silence, floating above the blue-green planet of Eridani 5. Outside the transparent walls, stars twinkled like scattered gems and the planet below swirled with clouds of white and teal. Inside the lab was a hive of soft humming machines, glowing screens, and moving platforms. Scientists moved quickly but carefully, preparing for what might be the most unusual experiment of human history. Dr. Lila Moreno, a human scientist with sharp eyes and a calm mind, walked among her colleagues. Her hair was tied back neatly, her lab coat spotless, and her fingers danced over holographic panels with practiced ease. She glanced at the metallic device sitting on a pedestal in the center of the lab. It was small, sleek, and oddly beautiful, made of a silver material that seemed to shimmer even under artificial light. A single trigger sat at its center. "Does it work, human?" a voice asked. It was soft, melodic, and unfamiliar. Lila looked up and saw a Zephyrian standing nearby. Its body was tall and thin, with smooth skin that changed color slightly with emotion, and eyes that glowed softly like liquid light. Lila's lips curved into a small smile. "We are about to find out," she replied. The Zephyrian tilted its head as if studying her very soul. Around her, other humans whispered in excitement and nervousness. The Zephyrians were curious and playful, often teasing their human colleagues, but they were also patient teachers. They wanted to understand humans as much as humans wanted to understand them. The device, the humans had been told, was designed to interact with reality in ways no human machine ever had. It could influence probabilities, change small outcomes, and respond to thought, emotion, and creativity. The Zephyrians treated it like a game, a way to see how humans would react when given a tool that could do almost anything. Lila bent over the pedestal, carefully lifting the device. It felt heavier than it looked. The metal was cold, but a faint warmth seemed to hum from inside it, almost like it was alive. She examined the trigger with her fingers. It was small and smooth, almost inviting. Her heart beat faster. "Ready for the first test?" asked Dr. Aaron Kepler, another human scientist, his voice tinged with excitement. His dark hair was slightly messy, and he had that look of a man who lived for discovery. "I hope it doesn't explode." Lila laughed softly. "If it does, we'll be the first humans to survive it. That counts as progress, right?" The Zephyrians tilted their heads in unison, a motion so synchronized it looked like a slow wave. They made soft clicking sounds that seemed to be laughter. "Do not underestimate," one said. "Humans are curious, dangerous in ways we cannot calculate." Lila's fingers rested lightly on the trigger. She took a deep breath. "We'll start small," she said, more to herself than anyone else. On the table in front of her was a suspended ball, floating in midair inside a small energy field. It glimmered with a soft blue light. "Let's see if it responds to simple intent." She focused on the ball, imagining it moving in a gentle circle. Slowly, she pressed the trigger. Nothing happened at first. The ball hovered. Then, almost imperceptibly, it began to drift. It moved in a small arc, then stopped, then swirled. Lila's eyes widened. It worked," Aaron whispered. "It actually worked." The Zephyrians clicked their tongues softly. "Interesting, your mind influences reality. Predictable, yet unpredictable." The humans exchanged glances. Excitement mingled with nervousness. The device was more responsive than they had imagined. Lila carefully released the trigger and let the ball settle. She felt a rush of energy, a mix of triumph and fear. This was only the first test, but it already felt monumental. "Try something playful," one of the Zephyrians suggested, its voice a musical hum. "Test creativity." Lila looked around at her colleagues. "What about levitating objects?" she asked. "Small things, nothing dangerous." Aaron grabbed a pen and held it above the table. Lila focused on the pen, imagining it spinning slowly in the air. She pressed the trigger lightly. The pen wobbled, lifted, and spun. It hovered for a moment, then gently floated back to the table. A cheer rose from the humans. "This is amazing," Aaron exclaimed. "We're bending reality." The Zephyrians watched in quiet fascination. "Humans are strange," one said. "They create order, with imagination, not logic." The lab seemed to buzz with energy. Objects hovered, shifted, and spun. Humans laughed as small things moved unpredictably. Lila tried to keep her focus, feeling both thrill and a growing caution. The device was playful, but it was not a toy. "Notice the small changes," she said softly. "Even little thoughts can affect it. We must be careful." The Zephyrians made a low hum. Curiosity leads to learning and to danger. You understand? Lila nodded. Yes, we will be careful. But curiosity is what got us here. We cannot stop now. Hours passed as humans and Zephyrians tested small experiments. A cup floated in midair, spinning. A pen changed color as it moved. A small cube hovered and flipped slowly. Lila watched, fascinated. Every experiment revealed new layers of complexity. Even a simple wish for a coin to flip heads or tails caused subtle shifts in probability around them. Then came the first warning. A small energy ripple passed through the lab, almost like a gust of wind knocking over a monitor. No one was hurt, but it was a reminder. The device was responding not just to thought, but to emotion and attention. If a human became frightened, impatient, or careless, the results could be unpredictable. Aaron picked up the monitor, smiling nervously. That's unsettling, but still exciting. Lila studied the device closely. It's like it listens to our intent, she said. Not just our actions, it's alive in a sense. The Zephyrians tilted their heads, intrigued. Alive, yes, but not in the way you think. It mirrors thought, tests limits. You humans are entertaining. As the day turned to night, or what passed for night aboard the orbital lab, Lila sat alone with the device. The other humans had retreated to rest. The Zephyrians hovered silently in the background. She ran her fingers along its surface, feeling a strange connection. This is incredible, she whispered to herself. If we understand it, if we learn its rules, we could change the way we think about science forever. A Zephyrian approached, its light shifting softly. Do you feel power, human? It asked. Do you understand responsibility? Lila nodded slowly. I feel it. I know it must be used carefully. But I also feel potential. Endless possibilities. The Zephyrian made a soft clicking sound. Yes, potential. And danger. The game is only beginning. Soon you must choose. How far will you go? Lila looked down at the device, the faint glow reflecting in her eyes. She knew the fun was only beginning, but she also understood the stakes. This was no longer just an experiment. This was a test of human creativity, intuition, and courage, something no machine and no alien could predict fully. She held the trigger lightly, feeling its hum, almost like a heartbeat. We will learn, she said softly, and we will prove that humans can handle what no one else can. The Zephyrian tilted its head again, whispering as it turned away, fading into the shadows of the lab. Does it work, human? We shall see. And with that, Lila knew the first chapter of a remarkable journey had begun. The lab was quiet once more, but the air was charged with possibility, and the stars outside shone a little brighter, as if watching her, waiting for what she would do next. The next morning, the laboratory felt different. The hum of machines seemed louder, almost aware, as if anticipating the experiments to come. Outside the transparent walls, Eridani 5 spun lazily beneath a sky tinged with violet clouds. Lila Moreno stood at the center of the lab, her eyes fixed on the sleek metallic device that had captured her mind and curiosity. Her colleagues gathered around, excitement and nervous energy in their faces. Dr. Aaron Kepler approached, holding a floating tablet displaying data from the previous day. Lila, he said, yesterday was incredible, but we need to be precise today. We can't just play. This device, it reacts to everything, thought, intention, even emotion. We have to understand it carefully. Lila nodded, feeling a mix of thrill and caution. I know, but I want to see what it can do beyond simple movements. We've seen small objects respond. I want to test influence. Let's see if it can actually predict and alter outcomes. The Zephyrians hovered nearby, their light-shifting forms pulsating gently. One leaned closer to her. Do not be reckless, human, it said, its melodic voice calm but firm. Curiosity is admirable, but control is essential. Lila held the device carefully. The trigger felt alive beneath her fingers. She had learned that subtle movements, small gestures, and focused thought could influence the results. Today, she intended to push further, but she also promised herself she would remain careful. First test, she said aloud. We will try something measurable. A simple coin flip, but with a twist. Let's see if intention alone can guide it. Aaron produced a coin, tossing it lightly into the air. Normally, the flip would be random, 50-50. But Lila focused her mind, imagining the coin landing heads up. She pressed the trigger gently, sending a faint hum through the room. The coin spun, flipped, and, landing with a soft clink, rested on heads. A cheer erupted among the humans. "It worked," Aaron exclaimed. It actually worked. The Zephyrians observed quietly, their colors shifting with interest. "Predictable, yet unpredictable," one said. "Humans have potential, and unpredictability is their strength." The excitement grew. Lila's colleagues began small experiments, floating pens, spinning cubes, suspended droplets of water. Each responded to thought, imagination, and intent. The lab buzzed with energy as humans tested their creativity and problem-solving skills. But then subtle anomalies began to appear. A floating pen moved slightly faster than intended. A suspended droplet split into two smaller droplets, each following its own unpredictable path. Lila noticed these oddities and frowned. "It's learning," she whispered to Aaron. "Or reacting. It doesn't just follow instructions. It responds to intent, but also to emotion, maybe even thought patterns we are not aware of." Aaron nodded, looking concerned but excited. "It's incredible," and a little unnerving. The Zephyrians clicked softly, a sound akin to amusement. "Curiosity is dangerous. Humans adapt quickly. They learn unpredictably." Lila took a deep breath. She wanted to push further, to test the device's limits without causing harm. Her mind raced, thinking of possibilities. She picked up a small ball, slightly larger than a baseball, and held it over the center table. "Let's see if it can respond to imagination," she said. "Not just influence, but creativity. I want to see it move in patterns we haven't planned." She focused, imagining the ball spinning in a smooth figure 8 through the air. She pressed the trigger lightly. The ball wavered, hesitated, and then began moving exactly as she had imagined. It twirled gracefully, suspended in midair, tracing the figure 8 pattern perfectly. The humans gasped. "This is artistry," Aaron said, eyes wide. "It's responding to imagination itself, not just commands." The Zephyrians' colors shifted rapidly, as if impressed. "Human creativity is remarkable," one said. "It is not just logic. It is intuition, emotion, and thought combined. This is why you are unique." For a moment, the lab was silent except for the hum of machinery and the soft pulse of the device. Lila felt a surge of pride and responsibility. They were witnessing something extraordinary, a bridge between human intuition and alien technology. But as they celebrated, a sudden ripple passed through the room. A small cluster of objects on a table wobbled, then floated erratically for a moment before settling. The humans stared, startled. "See?" Lila said quietly. "It responds not only to focused thought but also to surrounding energy, uncertainty, or even fear. We must remain calm and aware." Aaron picked up a pen that had spun wildly. "This is amazing. But it's unpredictable. Even small distractions can change results." The Zephyrians hovered silently. "Learning, observation, control. You must balance all three. Humans are entertaining and dangerous in ways we cannot predict." Lila realized that this was not just an experiment in science, but a test of human character. Curiosity could drive them forward, but overconfidence or impatience could lead to mistakes. She took a deep breath, focusing her mind again. "Next test," she said. "We combine thought with emotion. Let's see if it responds to desire." She picked up a small cube that glimmered with a faint inner light. She imagined it rising gently, spinning slowly, glowing brighter as it moved. She pressed the trigger. The cube floated upward, spinning, and its light intensified exactly as she had envisioned. A small cheer rose among the humans. The Zephyrians shifted colors rapidly, clearly impressed. "Humans are remarkable," one said softly. "They can think beyond limits. They can feel and create. This is why they endure, survive, and innovate." But the excitement was tinged with caution. Lila noticed subtle energy waves moving through the lab. Machines flickered briefly. The floating objects occasionally shifted unexpectedly. The device, she realized, was sensitive not just to thought but to mood, intention, and subtle focus. "We must be careful," she said aloud. "Even small missteps could have consequences." "It's learning, adapting," Aaron nodded. "It's incredible, but also humbling. This device is not just a tool, it's alive in its own way." Hours passed as they tested more small experiments. Floating liquids, spinning cubes, suspended droplets, coins flipping as intended. The lab was alive with motion, light, and hums. Every experiment taught them more about the device, its responsiveness, and its limits. Then came a small accident. A cup of water floated higher than expected and splashed softly onto a console. The humans scrambled to clean it, but no harm was done. It was a reminder. Even playful tests could have consequences. Lila looked at the device, feeling both thrill and respect. "We have to remember," she said softly. "This is powerful, but it's not a toy. It responds to thought, yes, but also to caution, focus, and awareness. One mistake could be serious." The Zephyrians made a soft clicking sound, almost like approval. Humans understand limits. They learn, adapt, survive. This is why they are remarkable. As the day ended, Lila stood alone in the center of the lab, holding the device carefully. The floating objects had settled. The machines hummed quietly, and the stars outside sparkled. She felt a deep connection to the device, almost like it responded to her presence, her focus, and her intentions. "This is only the beginning," she whispered to herself. "If we understand it, if we control it, we can do things no one else can. But we must respect it, or it may teach us a lesson we are not ready for." The Zephyrians hovered nearby, observing silently. "Does it work, human?" one whispered, its voice almost a song. "We shall see how far you will go." Lila looked at the device, the faint hum resonating in her hands. She knew that tomorrow would bring new tests, greater challenges, and choices that would reveal not only the device's potential, but also the true strength of the human spirit. And with that thought, she carefully placed the device on its pedestal, knowing that the first test had been successful, but that the real journey was just beginning. The laboratory felt charged with energy as another day began. Lila Moreno walked among her colleagues, her mind buzzing with ideas. The device rested on its pedestal, gleaming under the artificial lights. It had already responded to intention, thought, and creativity, but today Lila knew they would push further. Dr. Aaron Kepler approached, a smile on his face but worry in his eyes. "Lila," he said softly, "we've seen small tests succeed, but the device is more unpredictable than we thought. Yesterday the energy ripple was minor, but what if it grows? What if our curiosity leads to mistakes?" Lila nodded. "I know. But every discovery carries risk. We cannot learn without trying. We must be careful, yes, but cautious curiosity will teach us more than fear ever could." The Zephyrians hovered nearby, their light pulsating with subtle intensity. One tilted its head, eyes glowing brighter. "Humans are brave, or foolish. Your choice will show the limits of your kind." Lila held the device, feeling its hum almost like a heartbeat. She had learned yesterday that focus, emotion, and intent guided its actions. But the device also mirrored subtle feelings: fear, doubt, excitement. Today she wanted to test its response to more complex ideas. "We'll start with a challenge," she said. "Not just moving objects, not just predicting outcomes. Let's see if it can respond to patterns. Patterns we create in real time." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Patterns, you mean multiple objects moving in sequence?" "Yes," Lila replied. "I'll try controlling several things at once, imagining their movements, interactions, and timing. If the device can do this, it could prove human intuition can direct complex systems." The Zephyrians emitted soft clicking sounds, a form of laughter. "Dangerous, but interesting. Humans are entertaining." Lila placed several small objects on the center table: a cube, a pen, a ball, and a small floating disc that shimmered with energy. She took a deep breath, calming her thoughts, letting her mind focus on the shapes, positions, and imagined movements. She pressed the trigger. The objects responded immediately. The cube rolled forward, the ball spun and floated upward. The pen twisted in midair, and the disc rotated with precision, following the imaginary path Lila envisioned. Her colleagues watched in awe, their jaws dropping. "This is incredible," Aaron said softly. "It's like choreographing reality." Lila smiled, but she noticed something unusual. One of the objects, the pen, hesitated midair, wobbling unpredictably. Her heart skipped a beat. The device was responding, but it was also testing her. "Stay focused," she whispered to herself. She adjusted her thoughts, cleared any doubt, and the pen resumed its path, spinning smoothly. The objects returned to their intended positions. The Zephyrians' colors shifted rapidly, showing fascination. Humans were clever. They adapt quickly, their minds unpredictable, yet effective. The excitement grew, and soon other humans wanted to try. Dr. Mei Tanaka, a human physicist, attempted a complex levitation pattern with several liquid droplets. They danced in midair, forming shapes and moving like living things. Lila watched, impressed, but with each successful experiment the small anomalies grew. An object occasionally lagged, a light flickered unexpectedly, and energy ripples spread across the lab. Lila noticed these subtle effects, understanding that the device responded not only to focus, but to surrounding energy, emotion, and perhaps even the collective intent of everyone in the room. "This is more than a tool," Lila said quietly to Aaron. "It's almost alive. It responds to more than individual thought. We're learning, but it's also teaching us patience, focus, and control." Aaron nodded. "Yes, and we have to remember, even small mistakes can ripple. Yesterday it was minor. Today it could be bigger." The Zephyrians observed silently, their expressions unreadable. One spoke softly, almost a whisper. "Humans test limits. They adapt, yet sometimes curiosity exceeds caution. Observe and learn." Encouraged by their successes, Lila decided to attempt something even more daring. She placed a larger object, a cube of shimmering energy, on the pedestal. She imagined it moving through a series of intricate loops in the air, spinning and changing colors, interacting with the smaller objects around it. Her heart raced as she pressed the trigger. The cube moved. It glowed brighter, spinning gracefully, interacting perfectly with the floating objects. But then a sudden ripple surged through the lab. Gravity seemed to shift momentarily. The smaller objects wobbled, some colliding softly. Machines flickered. Lila's breath caught. She realized the device was not just responding to imagination, it was testing her limits, measuring focus, and reacting to the combined energy of the room. Aaron stepped closer. "Lila, be careful. It's more sensitive than we thought." She nodded, trying to steady herself. "I know, focus, calm, control." She adjusted her thoughts, and slowly the cube returned to its intended path, spinning gracefully without disruption. The humans and Zephyrians alike watched in silence, awe and tension mingling in the air. The Zephyrians' colors pulsed, showing a mixture of excitement and curiosity. "Humans were extraordinary," one said. "They can handle complexity and unpredictability. This is why they survive, why they endure." The success boosted confidence, but Lila felt the weight of responsibility. The device could do amazing things, but each experiment reminded her that it responded to intent, emotion, and even doubt. Overconfidence could cause disaster. Later, during a quiet moment, Lila reflected on the events of the day. She sat alone, the device humming softly on the pedestal before her. The floating objects had settled, but a subtle energy lingered in the air. "It's testing us," she whispered, "not just for results, but for control, for understanding. We can influence reality, but only if we remain calm, focused, and aware." The Zephyrians hovered nearby, their lights dimmed in quiet observation. "Human potential is remarkable," one said, "but curiosity can be dangerous. You adapt, you learn, but your choices determine outcome." Lila looked at the device, feeling both excitement and caution. She understood now that this was more than a game. It was a challenge, a test of human creativity, adaptability, and control. Every experiment was a step closer to understanding not just the device, but themselves. As the day drew to a close, the lab settled into a quiet hum. Lila placed the device gently on its pedestal and stepped back, her mind racing with ideas and questions. She knew tomorrow would bring new challenges and perhaps even riskier experiments. She glanced at the Zephyrians, who hovered silently, observing. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we push further. We learn more, and we show that humans can adapt, survive, and thrive even with the unknown." The Zephyrian's soft hum echoed through the lab, almost like approval. "We shall see, human. We shall see." Lila left the lab for rest, but her mind could not stop racing. She thought of the device, its potential, and the responsibility it carried. The first test had been successful, but the real challenge, the one that would test human intuition, courage, and adaptability, was still ahead. And as the stars of Eridani 5 twinkled outside, she knew one thing for certain: The game was escalating, and humans were ready to rise to the challenge. The laboratory hummed with tension. Lila Moreno stood at the center, staring at the device on its pedestal. Its metallic surface reflected the soft glow of the lab lights, and a faint vibration ran through her fingertips when she approached. Today the Zephyrians had announced something new, a full-scale test, one that could change the simulated planetary environment the lab had been observing. Aaron Kepler stepped beside her, his face calm but serious. "Lila," he said, "this is the next level. Small experiments are one thing, but influencing the planetary simulation, that's huge. One mistake, it could spiral out of control." Lila inhaled deeply, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. She had expected this moment, and yet the weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders. "I know," she said, "but we can't hold back. If we control it carefully, if we focus, we can learn more than ever before." The Zephyrians hovered around silently, their shifting lights brighter than usual. One spoke softly, almost teasingly. "Do you dare, human? Do you truly understand what you risk?" Lila's eyes met the Zephyrian's glowing gaze. She understood perfectly. The device was no longer just a tool. It was a test of human judgment, creativity, and control. Their intention had always been to measure more than ability. They measured the human spirit. The simulation room lay ahead, a large chamber with holographic projections of Eridani 5. Mountains, rivers, forests, and floating clouds shimmered in perfect detail. The task was simple in explanation but complex in execution. Influence the simulation to create a harmonious event. A storm was brewing in the virtual world, and the goal was to stabilize it without causing chaos elsewhere. Aaron stepped forward. "Remember, Lila, think carefully. Focus on intention, not just action. The device reacts to emotion, thought, and subtle energy. Don't let fear or impatience influence it." Lila nodded, placing her hands gently on the device. The familiar hum filled the room. She felt its pulse as if it were alive, sensing her determination, her focus, and even her doubt. "All right," she whispered, "we do this together. Humans and Zephyrians, and the unknown." She pressed the trigger lightly. The device responded immediately. A soft ripple of energy spread through the room, reaching into the simulation. Clouds began to shift, rivers glimmered differently, and the storm's intensity seemed to respond to her intention. She focused, imagining balance, rain nourishing forests, wind clearing paths, lightning contained safely. The simulation reacted beautifully at first. The storm softened, the wind calmed, and sunlight began to peek through the clouds. Lila's heart leaped. She had done it. The device was responding perfectly, but then subtle anomalies appeared. Trees swayed unnaturally, small animals in the simulation moved erratically, and pockets of energy rippled unpredictably. Lila realized the device was sensitive not only to thought but also to her emotion. Her excitement, her nervousness, even a flicker of fear influenced the simulation in ways she could not fully control. Aaron leaned close. "Focus, Lila, calm your mind. Don't let excitement or fear guide the device, only intention." She closed her eyes, breathing slowly, steadying herself. Slowly, the anomalies began to smooth out. The simulation balanced, the storm contained, and harmony returned. Lila opened her eyes, a small smile of relief crossing her face. The Zephyrians hovered silently, observing with what seemed like pride. "Human, you adapt. You learn. Yet the challenge has just begun," one said. Encouraged by the success, Lila decided to test the device further. This time, she wanted to create a complex interaction, rivers flowing into lakes, clouds dispersing gently, and mountains reflecting sunlight in a coordinated sequence. She visualized each movement in her mind, carefully tracing paths and outcomes. As she pressed the trigger, the device responded, but the room shook slightly. Gravity fluctuated for a moment, and small instruments floated briefly off tables. Lila's heart raced. The device was pushing back, almost as if testing her control. Aaron grabbed her shoulder. "Steady, think calmly. Don't fight it. Guide it gently." Lila nodded. She let go of tension and allowed her thoughts to flow smoothly, imagining harmony rather than forcing outcomes. Slowly, the simulation adjusted. Rivers curved perfectly, clouds drifted, and mountains reflected sunlight in dazzling patterns. The room settled, instruments returning to their places. But the test had revealed a truth Lila could not ignore. The device amplified emotion and intent in ways even humans could not fully predict. Overconfidence, impatience, or fear could create chaos. She had to remain vigilant. The Zephyrian's colors shifted rapidly, showing excitement and intrigue. Human are remarkable. Their minds, intuition, creativity. They surpass expectation, yet unpredictability is ever present. Lila looked at the device, understanding the gravity of what lay ahead. The full potential of the device was vast, but so was the responsibility. She could shape reality, or a simulation of it, but only if she maintained complete awareness and focus. Later, as the lab quieted, Lila reflected on the day's events. The experiments had succeeded, but she felt a sense of unease. The device was a powerful tool, but it responded to more than action. It responded to thought, emotion, and collective energy. Aaron approached, his expression thoughtful. "You handled it beautifully, Lila, but I see the concern in your eyes. This device, it's unlike anything we've known. One wrong move, it could escalate." She nodded. "I know it's teaching us, not just what we can do, but how we must think, act, and control ourselves. Every choice matters." The Zephyrians floated nearby, their colors dimming to a calm glow. One spoke softly, as if offering advice rather than judgment. "Human courage is admirable, but wisdom and patience are essential. You have potential, but one choice can change everything." Lila held the device lightly, feeling its pulse against her skin. "I understand," she said. "We must respect it, and ourselves. Only then can we use it wisely." As evening fell aboard the orbital lab, the stars outside twinkled with quiet brilliance. Lila stood alone, contemplating the device. She knew tomorrow would bring the most daring test yet. The simulation was only a training ground. Soon they would attempt something closer to reality. Her thoughts drifted to the challenge ahead. Could she guide the device safely through greater complexity? Could humans truly master something that amplified not just thought, but emotion, intention, and unpredictability? She touched the trigger gently. The hum pulsed warmly, as if acknowledging her determination. "We will rise to the challenge," she whispered. "We will prove that humans can adapt, think, and excel, even when faced with the unknown." The Zephyrians hovered silently, their colors shifting slowly. "We shall see, human. The true test begins soon." Lila looked at the device one last time before leaving the lab for rest. Her mind was calm, focused, and determined. The first major challenge had been successful, but she knew the greatest test, the one that would require courage, creativity, and complete control, was still ahead. And as she drifted into sleep in her cabin aboard the orbital station, the stars of Eridani 5 sparkled brightly as if watching her, waiting for the moment she would face the next trial. The laboratory felt different that morning. A quiet tension hung in the air, thicker than any before. Lila Moreno stood at the center of the room, her fingers brushing the metallic device. It pulsed softly under her touch, almost like a heartbeat, resonating with the energy of her thoughts. Today was the final test, the one the Zephyrians had warned would reveal the true potential and limits of human capability. Dr. Aaron Kepler approached cautiously, his expression serious. "Lila, this is it. We've prepared for everything we know, but beyond this, the device is unpredictable. One mistake could—" He trailed off, leaving the warning unspoken. Lila nodded, absorbing his caution. "I know, Aaron. I also know we've learned more than we imagined. We can do this. We must stay calm, focused, and united." The Zephyrians hovered silently, their colors shifting with quiet intensity. One spoke softly, almost like a whisper. "Human, your courage has been proven, but control, wisdom, and intuition will be tested. Today, reality itself will respond to your choice." The final test was ambitious. Lila was to influence a full-scale simulation of Eridani 5, guiding not only weather patterns but ecological systems, river flows, and atmospheric currents simultaneously. The goal was to create balance, maintain harmony in the simulated environment without causing unexpected disturbances. Aaron handed Lila a floating tablet displaying the simulation. "It's complex. Every action you take affects multiple systems. We've practiced, but nothing prepares you for the full scale." Lila took a deep breath. Her mind cleared, letting go of fear and distraction. She focused entirely on intention, visualization, and calm. Slowly, she pressed the trigger. The lab hummed with energy. Light rippled across the room as the simulation responded. Clouds shifted, rivers curved naturally, and wind patterns adjusted to her imagined flow. It was perfect for a moment. Then a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the room. The floating instruments trembled, lights flickered, and gravity seemed to shift for an instant. The device was responding not only to her focus but also to the collective nervous energy of everyone in the lab. Erin reached out instinctively. "Stay focused, Lila. Don't let fear or hesitation influence it." Lila's heart raced. She realized that controlling the device at full scale was unlike anything she had done before. It wasn't just about visualization. It was about emotional balance, intuition, and precise thought. One wrong feeling, one flicker of doubt, and the simulation could spiral out of control. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly, steadying her mind. She imagined the storm calming, rivers flowing smoothly, and animals moving naturally. Slowly, the ripples began to stabilize. The clouds softened, sunlight pierced through the atmosphere, and rivers returned to their intended paths. The humans and Zephyrians watched silently. Even the Zephyrians' colors had dimmed to soft glows, signaling both caution and curiosity. Lila's fingers tightened on the trigger. The device pulsed gently as if sensing her determination. She imagined the simulation in full harmony, every element responding naturally to her guidance. Slowly, the chaotic energy waves dissipated. The simulated world began to breathe with balance, life moving perfectly in rhythm. Erin let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You did it, Lila. You really did it." Lila opened her eyes, a mixture of relief and exhilaration crossing her face. "It wasn't just me," she said softly. "It was all of us. Focus, observation, humanity's creativity. That's what guided it." The Zephyrians hovered closer, their lights pulsating in admiration. One spoke softly, its tone almost reverent. "Indeed, humans surpass expectation. They think, adapt, and create in ways logic alone cannot predict. Your ingenuity, courage, and intuition are extraordinary." Lila's heart swelled with pride. She realized in that moment what the Zephyrians had been testing all along. It wasn't the device alone. They wanted to see if humans could rise to challenges that demanded creativity, focus, and moral judgment. But the celebration was short-lived. A sudden surge, faint but noticeable, pulsed through the lab. A small floating cube trembled violently and instruments flickered. The device, sensing her emotions and the collective energy of the room, reacted subtly. Lila understood instantly. Even success required continued attention. Complacency could be dangerous. "Focus," she whispered to herself. "Stay aware." She directed her thoughts gently, calming the minor ripples. The cube settled, lights stabilized, and the hum of the lab returned to a steady rhythm. Lila exhaled slowly, realizing the final lesson of the test. Control wasn't just about the device, it was about self-mastery, emotional awareness, and precise thought. Erin looked at her with awe. "We've witnessed something incredible. Not just the device, but you, Lila, humans, can handle the unknown." The Zephyrians' colors shifted to soft gold and blue, a sign of deep respect in their culture. "Yes," one said. "You have shown courage, intelligence, and mastery. Humans are exceptional." Lila gently placed the device back on its pedestal, feeling its soft hum subside. She looked around at her colleagues, who were staring in admiration and relief. The lab had been a stage, the device a challenge, and humanity, the collective skill, intuition, and creativity of humans, had risen to meet it. "This is more than science," Lila said softly. "It's a reminder. Humans can adapt, survive, and thrive even with forces we don't fully understand. Creativity and courage, that's our strength." The Zephyrians nodded, hovering silently in acknowledgement. Humans endure because they imagine, and they act, they adapt. Where others hesitate, today, you have proven why your kind is remarkable. For the first time, Lila felt the full weight of accomplishment. It wasn't just about the experiments, the floating objects, or even the simulations. It was about the human spirit, the ability to observe, learn, adapt, and persevere in the face of unknown challenges. As the day drew to a close, Lila stepped back, looking out at the swirling colors of Eridani 5 below. The stars reflected softly in the lab's transparent walls. She knew the device could do far more than they had imagined, but she also knew that with focus, awareness, and creativity, humans could rise to any challenge. Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've seen something incredible today. Humanity truly shines when challenged," Lila smiled. "And we've only just begun. Today we proved that even with unknown power, humans can think, adapt, and excel. That is what makes us remarkable." The Zephyrians hovered quietly, their forms pulsing softly with admiration and quiet amusement. "Indeed," one said, "humans have potential beyond expectation. You have learned, and you have taught. This is the essence of survival, growth, and triumph." The lab settled into a peaceful hum. Objects floated gently, the devices were calm, and the simulation shimmered with perfect balance. Lila looked at the device one last time. Its faint pulse echoed softly, a reminder of lessons learned and challenges overcome. She turned to leave, her mind clear, focused, and proud. Humans had faced the unknown, harnessed their creativity and courage, and triumphed. They had risen to the challenge not by strength alone, but by intelligence, adaptability, and the indomitable human spirit. And as she stepped into the corridor leading to her quarters, the stars outside twinkled brighter, almost as if applauding the achievements of humanity. Lila smiled softly. The device had tested them, the Zephyrians had observed, and humans had proven themselves extraordinary. Today was not just a victory for science, it was a victory for the human spirit. And somewhere in the silent orbit of Eridani 5, a soft voice echoed from the shadows. "Indeed, it works, human, far beyond what we imagined." Lila paused, smiled, and whispered back, "Yes, and we will keep rising." The journey had ended, but the lessons and triumphs would endure, proof that humans, even in the face of the unknown, could imagine, adapt, and succeed.